And that's a fundamental issue of Manchester United at the moment, is there's not enough leaders at the club.
Hi guys, welcome back to another week of TFW, the footballing show dominated by all of your opinions. Angelina is on holiday, so again, it's just me and what has been an extraordinary weekend of football. We'll be talking about Memphis Depay to Barcelona, Liverpool's reaction to that shocking defeat, loads of transfer news. We'll be talking to Stephen Howson from Stretford Paddock. And of course, there will be loads more coming up as well. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. First off, if you're wondering about what's going on with the set, it's currently being redone. Very soon, it'll look brand spanking new. Anyway, Simon Card 3 has said Barcelona need Depay because he is more reliable than Dembele. I would tend to agree with this on a massive level. Not only is he more reliable than Dembele in terms of not being injured, I think Depay can bring more to the Barcelona attack in a number of positions. Again, time off filming on a Monday lunchtime. Not entirely sure whether or not Ousmane Dembele will still be at the club. It looks like he will, and he's not going to be moving to Manchester United. But Depay, on top of this, has experience. Is a very experienced international player as well. And I feel like in a lot of ways, Depay could be a very good signing for Barcelona. They seem to have signed some good youngsters, or some old players who are probably past their best. But Depay doesn't fit either. He fits into that peak, heading into his top years kind of level. And I think it'd be a fantastic signing for Barca. I think he really would. And it would really send a good message, combined with the fact they've had a pretty good start to the season as well, to the fans to be a little bit more positive about this season. Yo Kimmich, obviously not Joshua Kimmich, has said Trent Alexander-Arnold will get exposed this season like against Leeds and Aston Villa. Exposed is an understatement for the Aston Villa game. Trent is a limited player whose strengths are crossing and long switches. Credit to Klopp, but here his system changes with time and opposition will eventually figure it out. I completely agree again. This is a rather odd start to the show. No, I don't completely agree. I think Trent is a better player than just crosses and long balls. Having said that, defensively he needs to improve so much. And you're right here with the Klopp system. Klopp has got this system and the way that they play because it brings out the best in each individual player. That makes complete sense. That's what a manager should do. He should identify the strengths in his squad, play to that, and try and master the weaknesses. The problem is, when the weaknesses become abundantly clear, they become abundantly clear in a spectacular fashion, in a losing 7-2 to Aston Villa sort of fashion. I was watching the game and I thought every time Villa went forward, I thought, God, Alexander-Arnold's had a shocker here. Poor game, defensively, just can't cut it. Then he got the ball and he'd hit like a 60-yarder to Andy Robertson and I think, God, Trent Alexander-Arnold, what a player. What a fantastic player, great technique. Literally, you're seeing both sides of him and I agree. Yeah, defensively, he needs to shape up. Max Laumann has said Bayern have signed Mark Roca and are close to signing a few other players. Do you think they've underperformed this transfer window? I'm not sure Bayern have underperformed. It looks like Douglas Costa is going to be a Bayern Munich player by the end of the transfer window. This, of course, because they failed to agree a deal with Chelsea for Callum Hudson-Odoi. Ivan Perisic went back to Inter Milan after their loan, and they needed a fourth winger, especially with Kingsley Coman's transfer history injury. They've got Coman, Gnabry, and now Leroy Sané. They need a fourth one. If they're going all the way in all their competitions, including the Club World Cup as well, because they won the Champions League, they do need a few players. I think it's just so difficult. Obviously, Roca's come in to replace Thiago, and Javi Martinez looks like he's leaving too. It's so difficult to improve on the best. Like, you've just won a treble, obviously Bayern Munich. How do you improve on being the best? You know what I mean? It's very difficult, so I wouldn't expect fireworks, because if Bayern Munich were to make wholesale changes, you'd be like, what are you doing? If it ain't broke, you don't need to fix it. Like, you don't need to bring in crazy amounts of transfers because you're the best. So it's a very fine line. I think Liverpool also struggled with this fine line. You know, earlier on the transfer window, especially last time as well, they weren't quite sure. They knew they were good. They didn't know where they could improve. Now we've seen that they need to improve on their squad depth, and they've done it with the likes of Thiago and Jota. So I think it is a very difficult position. I would never say they've underperformed by not signing too many players. Sankaran CB has said, unpopular opinion, Dominic Calvert-Lewin should be second choice striker for England come the Euros. I'm not so sure that's unpopular anymore. I think that is a very popular opinion. I think Calvert-Lewin is brilliant. He showed signs of it last season, getting into double figures for the first time for Everton, and now was it 6 goals in the first 4 games? The thing I like about Calvert-Lewin is he seems to be another all-round striker, much in the Harry Kane mould. Calvert-Lewin's a lot faster than Harry Kane is. That's just one strength. I think he beats Kane. Kane's better than him at pretty much everything else. But Calvert-Lewin is so well-rounded that he can play up front by himself, and I think this is so key. I think it's so good for strikers these days to be able to do everything. Lewandowski's another one, the perfect example. You saw as teams tactically changed to a one-person front line instead of a two-person front line in the old 4-4-2 formation, that smaller strikers kind of got edged out of the game, apart from the likes of Sergio Aguero. You know, strikers had to adapt. You had new strikers like Firmino, who's very much a linking kind of player. You had strikers who, he's a very sort of niche category of strikers. But strikers, smaller players, I always think of the likes of Jermaine Defoe, Robbie Keane, who else is there? Sort of that Michael Owen sort of striker who not were one-trick ponies, but just being up there by themselves wouldn't cut it. Like, it wouldn't be enough. You have to be all round. If you're going to be leading the line, you've got to be a hold-up player. You've got to be able to run in behind. You've got to be good with both feet, good in the air. Set pieces are a plus. And I think the likes of Calvert-Lewin and Kane are really showing that that's the way forward. Tammy Abraham is another one who's brilliant at that. Really, really good. I think sometimes Jamie Vardy often gets found out. When he doesn't have the space in behind, Vardy's not really got much else to offer. So I think that, yes, Calvert-Lewin should be second choice. I don't think it's an unpopular opinion because he's a brilliant player. Pavel Korokimaru has said, Alexander-Maximin is underrated. He's the next big player. His skills are the best in the Premier League. Ooh, that's a bit of a strong one. If you wouldn't have signed for Newcastle, the whole world would compare it to Neymar. Okay, now you're just getting silly. No, I'm not a Newcastle fan. He's brilliant, Alexander-Maximin. Alan, sorry, not Alex. Brilliant player. Phenomenal player. Takes on the man like you wouldn't believe and does it again and again and again. Very much like Adama Traore, sort of gets the ball down, faces up the defender, and the defender thinks, oh, he's not going to run me again, is he? You damn right he's going to run you again. A very good player. Whether you could compare him to Neymar, I mean, we're talking game-changing abilities at the highest level for Neymar over the course of his whole career. We're not talking about a good 6 or 7 month spell for Saint-Maximin. Pretty much covers the back end of last season and the start of this. That's it, really. I'm not so sure you could say he's the best, or he's very good. And he's going to do lots of damage against teams, for sure. It's just whether he can consistently do it over the course of the season. And lastly but not least, before we get into, of course, loads more of your comments and opinions, and I'm going to put them to Stephen Howson. Janis Golanos has said, right now, Son is the best player in Spurs by a huge distance. You know it's true, Matt. No, I don't know it's true. No, Son is not the best player by a huge distance. This is what I've seen over the channel recently, and the last few years. People say, oh, Spurs are so much better when Kane's injured. Son steps up, blah, blah, blah. The only people, football fans, who think Son is the best at Spurs are the people who don't want Harry Kane to be the best. That is it. Kane is, I wouldn't say by far and away, because he's an elite level with the likes of Heung-min Son as well. Kane is the best player at Spurs. They are better when he's in the team without fail. You've seen it this season. I mean, what is it now? 5 assists and three goals in the first 4 games for Spurs? Insane. One of those games they didn't even score in. So the last 3 games, 5 assists and 3 goals. Son's got 6 goals and I think 2 assists. Yes, no. Son is not the best player at Spurs. Kane is the best player. Son is just a little bit behind Kane. The only people who seem to think that just really hate Kane and just really don't want him to be the best because they know how much Spurs fans love him, which they do, and rightly so, because he is the best. We're going to move on to our special guest for this week because loads of you had so many comments about Manchester United. So I thought, why not get Stephen Howson on from Stretford Paddock and speak to him earlier about all of your opinions.
The first one's coming from Log Primeton, who said Maguire shouldn't be captain and Smalling should be playing instead of Maguire. It would be an improvement.
He's got a point. I don't think Maguire should be United captain. But if it's not him, who is it?
That's my
personally,
thought.
he got it 6 months into his United tenure-ish, didn't he, when Ashley Young was moved on. That's a whole other subject altogether. But he got given it on the basis of there is no other league. Are you going to give it Paul Pogba, who doesn't want to be there? Are you going to give it De Gea? Who else can you give it to? Could you give it Marcus Rashford? Maybe, but he's a little bit early in his career, and maybe he might be United captain one day, but I don't think he's ready for it yet. On Chris Smalling, look, Chris Smalling's a good defender, and actually he's probably a better 1v1 defender than most of the players that we've got at United. But United are trying to play a particular style of football that he doesn't mash up with. There's a reason Solskjaer was happy to let him go on loan when we had injury crisis at centre-half last season. He's not good enough to play for Manchester United. Simple as that.
Do you think Maguire got it just off the fact that he's like a big English, tough-looking centre-half and not actually because he merited the captaincy?
Probably, yeah. But again, who else really stands out? You go through our usual 11. Luke Shaw? No. Lindelof? No. Many people argue he shouldn't even start for the club. Maguire? Not really. Matic? Doesn't play every week. Wan-Bissaka? No. You're not going to give it Bruno. He's literally just arrived as the previous guy's leaving. You're not going to give it Pogba. You're going to give it Jesse Lingard? Are you going to give it Tony Marshall?
Yeah.
You're going to give it Dan James? Who are you going to give it? There's literally, and that's a fundamental issue of Manchester United at the moment, is there's not enough leaders at the club. I take you back to that 1994 double-winning team. Mark Hughes, Eric Cantona, Paul Ince, Brian Robson, Pallister, Bruce, Irwin, Schmeichel. We've got 9 captains in that team. Leaders, winners. Yeah. We don't have them sort of characters anymore.
Jeez. Right, we'll move on next to a bit of a transfer one that's coming from Christoph Osterwijk, who said, have United made the right choice on signing Cavani?
All summer, I've been saying United need 3 or 4 signings. It looks like we might be getting 3 or 4 signings as it stands at the moment. There's a lot of talk about Adam Traore potentially coming. It's not Sancho. And I've been advocating for depth. Yeah. Not just with the truncated season, not just with the non-existent pre-season that we've had, but the fact that we've got a global pandemic as well. And I mean, you have to treat this as another category of injury or suspension almost now. There's going to be players that contract the virus and are missing for 2 weeks. It's happening. It's happening for my grassroots team, so it's going to be happening at the top flight without a shadow of a doubt. So I can't complain when we actually sign some depth. And it sounds like it's very much a pay-as-you-play contract. It isn't in line with what Solskjaer has been doing previously in terms of a younger profile of player, someone who's definitely wanting to play for Manchester United. I'm not sure that Cavani ticks either of those boxes, but one box he does tick is an experienced goal-getter. And he's a completely different style of number 9 that we have at the club.
Yeah, oh, for sure. But you touched on Solskjaer just there, because I find it interesting to see how the signings reflect the manager, and it also reflects their sort of backing and belief in it, in the manager. And Volcano has said, do you think sacking Ollie would be the solution to the start of the season, or is he still the right man for the job?
Well, if you're sacking Ollie, you're also sacking Pep and Klopp, because they've had similar shaky starts, ropey starts at the start of the season. I don't think it's any coincidence whatsoever that the teams that haven't had a good pre-season, they've had a shortened pre-season, or they went further in Europe, have looked horrendous. And that's not just in England, although I think it's exaggerated in England because how competitive the Premier League is. But I think there's no coincidence whatsoever that the teams that went the furthest in Europe are the teams that look the shakiest. And the ones that might eventually ride it out, the likes of Chelsea, are the ones who splashed the cash and got loads of players in. It's not about the value of the players, but it's about the fact that they got extra bodies in that weren't dragged through the mud towards the end of the season. And I think that's exacerbated at United because we played the same 11 week in, week out and basically rode ourselves into the ground towards the end of the season. We didn't rotate. So we started with a team that was already tired, that hasn't had a pre-season. And some of that, you might be able to blame on the manager, but I think some of that you have to look at the recruitment side of the club. If we was able to bring in more players of Cavani's ilk, not necessarily actual Cavani's, but free transfers, players in the 30s, someone who come in and do a job for you, then you can give the likes of Bruno a night off. Then you can give Marcus Rashford a night off. Then you can give Maguire a night off. This defence last season conceded, 30-odd goals? We conceded 11 in 3 games. Same defence, same manager. What's the difference? The difference is a lack of pre-season. Liverpool don't concede 7 against Aston Villa. There's something going on that we're not... I mean, lack of pre-season is one thing, right? But that doesn't explain the abjectly poor defending that we saw from Luke Shaw and from Maguire and from Bayer. That doesn't add up. But if we was conceding in the 60th and the 70th and the 80th minute, it would make a lot more sense. But I can't put my finger on it, but there's definitely something which is causing all of those clubs to look the way they look at the moment.
I mean, yeah, both were 4-1 down at half-time. This isn't a late spurt at all. My God. Yeah, right, so lastly then, sorry, the final one. You talked about Pogba not wanting to be there. So Jimmy T has said, if anyone was stupid enough to offer 50 million for Pogba, would you take it?
I think with his contract ticking down now, I think are we into his last year now? Apparently talks haven't even started yet.
Oh my God.
If I thought that 50 million would go straight into another player, yeah. Because I think there's been some great, but look at Allen, look at Thiago Alcantara. You can pick up fantastic players that improve this club for sensible money. So £50 million Paul Pogba, yeah, I'd cash in.
Amazing. Anyway, thank you so much for speaking to us, mate. I hope you've, I hope things get a little bit better for you for United, and I'm sure we'll have you back on soon.
No worries, see you later.
A pretty annoyed Stephen Howson over this crazy weekend of football which saw Manchester United get absolutely battered. So before we finish, the craziest opinion of the week. I'm not going to say who it is, because then you'll all start writing crazy opinions, hoping that you get in the show. That's not how it works. So I'm not going to say who said it. All they said was Klopp has lost it. Sack him now and bring back Roy Hodgson. There you have it, people. There is the mastery, the wizardry. By the way, the trusty laptop's iPad's still here. That is it. Bring back Roy Hodgson. I'm sure he'd do a better job, and he'd bring back Paul Konchesky too. Anyway, that is it from this week's TFW. As always, thank you so much for your opinions. Make sure you leave them in the community tab on Sunday night. That is where I post for you guys to leave a comment underneath. As for next week, we'll be back, I'll be back, Angelina will be back, and the studio will hopefully be nice and clean and ready and all done for you guys to enjoy. Make sure you give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new around here, and check here or here to check out all of the other videos we've got going on OneFootball. But until next time, have a great week, and I'll see you guys later.